enough has been said about Portal. Even after more than 15 years since its release, this game still stands today as one of the best puzzle games of all time, and one that at this point should already be on everyone's to-play list. There's really not much else to add when speaking about Portal, leaving whatever review I could make to be incredibly repetitive and similar to the hundreds that came before. Hence, I will not be reviewing Portal. Instead, I'll be telling you all about how Portal changed my perception of video games forever, whilst saying this game is obviously a must-play for numerous reasons. Let me explain. I've been playing video games my entire life. However, I don't think I was playing them right before being introduced to Portal. Since 2005, when I got my first ugly pink Nintendo DS, I've always had some game to play. I spent a lot of my time playing Pokemon Leaf Green, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Brain Training, and the ever-so-classic Nintendogs. On the PC, I spent hours on end playing time management and life simulation games, which obviously included Diner Dash as well as the Sims franchise. And although I do have some great memories with these games, for all those years, I never saw them as a true form of escapism. As someone who has always struggled to shut down her brain, I've consistently looked for ways to distract it from whatever was bothering it. However, games just never did that for me. That was until Portal. Although this game came out in 2007, the first time I ever heard of it was through my boyfriend in 2014. Unlike me, he has really been playing video games his entire life and is actually very knowledgeable about the topic. In fact, the gameplay you're seeing right now is his 100th playthrough of Portal, which is way quicker than my 100th playthrough would ever be. At that time, I had obviously never played a game like Portal. It just had it all. A quirky storyline with its iconic antagonists, mixed with a puzzle mechanic like no other I had ever seen. However, I'd be lying if I said what drew me to Portal at first glance wasn't its narrative.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Computer-Aided Enrichment Center.
At the time, I honestly couldn't believe that a simple video game could have created such a compelling and interesting story. Waking up in that relaxation vault, listening to that happy-sounding music, and finally getting my hands on the
Aperture Science handheld portal device
left me intrigued from the get-go. For the first time ever, I felt like binging a video game. This was uncharted territory for me. I've always enjoyed the satisfaction of making progress in a game, but this was different. I wanted to know who Gladys was, what we were doing in Aperture Labs, and above it all, what those strange rooms with the writing on the walls meant. Although more than clearly coined as one of the most iconic plot twists in video game history, the sentence, "the cake is a lie," had 15-year-old Anna in a chokehold. As someone who loves to read, I was fascinated at how well written the dialogue of Portal is. Or I guess I should say monologue, since the only character to ever speak during the entirety of this game is Gladys, an AI system that keeps talking you through the steps of how to work with portals in an extremely passive-aggressive manner.
Unbelievable. You,
Subject name here.
must be the pride of.
Subject hometown here.
Despite her flat robotic tone, Gladys is extremely expressive with her words, with her real intentions becoming incredibly clear after you go through the trials and tribulations of Chamber 19.
Thank you for participating in this Aperture Science Computer-Aided Enrichment activity. Goodbye.
The dialogue was just that great. No need for exclamation marks, no back and forth between characters, and there I sat, completely engaged in what Gladys had to say, finding myself even letting out the occasional chuckle. The attention to detail in almost every dialogue line was exquisite, with it all being topped off by the credits song, Still Alive, where somewhat dead Gladys sings about how she has science to do and that she's not at all upset at your attempt to murder her.
I'm not even angry. I'm being so sincere right now.
All in all, I felt the exact same way that I did while reading a book. I was immersed in that world as soon as I opened the game. And this was the first thing that it took for me to really fall in love with video games. Even though Portal's story is an incredible highlight, it isn't the only place where this game shines. I'm going to talk a little bit about Portal's gameplay now, but before I do, I want you to keep this in mind. Back in 2014, I was playing little to no video games, and was incredibly unskilled at whichever I tried, which usually resulted in me getting extremely frustrated and closing whatever game I was playing. How Portal came to be the perfect solution is actually an easy answer. Although not a particularly hard game, it's challenging enough for someone who's not used to playing, while being extremely fair by explaining every single mechanic exceptionally well. You're perhaps wondering how this is done. Well, even though she's out to get you, Gladys is actually a great teacher.
In dangerous testing environments, the Enrichment Center promises to always provide useful advice. For instance, the floor here will kill you. Try to avoid it.
As the game progresses, you're slowly introduced to each mechanic individually, with the upcoming levels being built on these earlier lessons. There's no luck-based features, no surprise mechanic that you've never seen before. Just good old puzzle solving with a lot of creativity in the mix. Again, the dialogue is key here. How can we forget the iconic
In layman's terms, speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
But it wouldn't be enough without the brilliant level construction. The maps have been extremely well designed for you to intuitively learn how to think with portals. The levels become increasingly difficult, but by the time of your near-death experience, you've got all the tools you need to escape the slimy claws of Aperture Science. This resulted in a very enjoyable and challenging experience for me, as I never felt so out of depth that I'd consider quitting. For the first time ever, the frustration that usually came with playing a game never surfaced. I was happy, even when somewhat defeated. I just wanted to try again and again and again if I had to. That was a first for me, and honestly, I wouldn't be here today talking about video games if it weren't for this precise moment. Obviously, I am well aware that if I were to play Portal today for the very first time, I'd be much better at it and I'd understand things quicker, considering I actually know how to operate a mouse and keyboard simultaneously. I know it wouldn't take me 8 hours to finish it, but I also know that I wouldn't have been able to appreciate it as much as I did back then. Overall, Portal opened up a completely new world to me, a completely new hobby that interests me more every single day, even almost after 10 years since my first playthrough. Not only that, Portal brought me comfort. It showed beginner Anna that she didn't have to be a beginner forever, that she was actually able of completing a game, and showed her how good it felt to do so.
I'm making a note here. Huge success.
Portal is truly a masterpiece, a perfect example of great storytelling and level design. Additionally, it also demonstrates how you can have a perfectly beginner-friendly game that isn't incredibly easy. Portal is really just that great of an experience. And I know, even though I told you this wasn't a review, I cannot, for the life of me, finish this video without explicitly saying that I highly recommend Portal to every single person out there.